Welcome to our Can't Keep Silent podcast. We discuss a variety of topics, and although the basis of our discussions are spiritual, we deal with real issues, some controversial, which at some point may apply to all of us in some way, either personally, emotionally, socially, spiritually, culturally, nationally, and even globally. I am your host, Lydia Clark. We are currently in a series called I Overcame It. We will be talking with people who have faced tragic, heartbreaking, or dire circumstances, and God delivered them. This series has a twofold purpose: to encourage others who may be facing the same circumstances and let them know there is hope. If God helped them overcome, He will help you. And we also want to let others know that God is alive and He is concerned about your suffering. We live in a fallen world, so suffering is unavoidable. But the promise we have from God is that He will deliver us. In this series, the people we will interview have been delivered and have overcome. God is not apathetic. He's loving, He's powerful, and nothing is impossible with Him. If you allow Him, He will take your suffering and turn it into something beautiful you never imagined. He's great like that. Today, we are talking to Rose Smith, a dear friend of mine who as a young girl went through the fire, literally. All right, Rose, why don't you start off just by telling us a little bit about your family and where you grew up and your background?
Well, I grew up in Canton, Ohio, home of the Football Hall of Fame. And I had a mother and a father, and I also had three other siblings. One of the siblings was lost in the fire that I'll be talking about. Okay. But basically, just, a happy kid in Canton, Ohio. That's how I grew up.
Well, that's good. And so you lived over a bar, right, with your parents?
Yeah.
And family. Okay. And so at the time of the fire, it was just you and your brother. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And how old were both of you?
At that time, I was 3 going on 4, and my brother was 2 going on 3. My brother, Harry Jr., he and I were 1 year and 1 day apart. I was born on January 29th. And then the following year, he was born on January 31st.
Oh, okay. Well, can you tell us what led to the fire? What happened?
Okay. Well, basically, this is what happened. We were being regular kids, and we were playing in the dining room kitchen area. Mm-hmm. And my mom said, I got to run across the street and get something from the store. I'm just going to go across the street and get something. I'll be right back. Okay. And actually, if you looked out the window of our apartment, you could actually see her crossing the street. Just a regular street. It wasn't far away. It wouldn't take you very long to get there. And so while she was walking over to the store, we decided that we were just going to intensify our game that we were playing. And I don't know what we called it. Later on in life, our siblings and I always named our games. But this particular game, I guess we were calling it House. And there was a cardboard box. And so I decided to put the cardboard box on top of the register. And I don't know what else they call this, but this was a register which had flames in the top of it.
So your apartment?
Yeah, it would heat up the apartment.
Okay.
So I took the box and I put it on top of that. And of course, the box caught on fire. And so it caught on fire, and we started panicking. Smoke was filling the apartment, and I said, "Oh, we got to go." And so I opened the hallway door to go out, and the hallway was dark. I was flipping the light switch for the hallway light to come on, but the light bulb was burned out. And I said, oh, we can't go in the dark because there's a boogeyman in the dark.
Mm.
And
This,
so
excuse me, Rose, was it daylight when this happened or was it at night?
it was like, I guess it was getting dusky.
Okay.
So it wasn't pitch black dark, but in the apartment going
Yeah.
into the hallway, it was black because there's no light in the hallway.
Okay.
And so then I said, oh, we got to get some water. And so we had a big Kool-Aid pitcher, and it was that pitcher with the Kool-Aid person on it. I think you had one of those as a
Yeah,
kid too.
I remember.
And so I think that we tried to put water on the fire at no success, but we also were trying to drink the water, and we couldn't, it was too heavy. The water jug and everything, it was just too heavy. And then I heard Mom at the bottom of the stairs, and she couldn't come up because the smoke was too great. And at that time, she was pregnant with my sister Sandra.
Okay.
And so she was trying to come up the stairs, but she kept coughing. So she was calling for us to come down. And I told her that it was dark and I couldn't come down. And then I told her we're sleepy. And so Harry Jr. and I left that dining room area and went into our bedroom and laid down on the beds.
So
And
probably the smoke was making you sleepy.
yeah, I think that that's exactly what it was. And
Oh,
so the next thing that I remember after laying down, I mean, I remember hearing Mom calling us and crying. She just kept crying and calling for us and begging us to come down. And I was dozing off and I said, we're sleepy. And then the next thing that I remember is seeing a fireman on a rope coming through the window with his feet breaking the window. And that's the next thing I remember. And then after that, I don't remember anything except being in the hospital.
so do you recall being afraid during this time? Because it sounds like maybe you weren't. Do you remember feeling fear?
I remember feeling confusion and
Mm,
searching for an answer. I don't remember feeling afraid,
okay.
just I'm more confused, like, what do we do next? What do we do next?
Mm. Who was it that called the fire department? Do you know?
I don't know who called them.
No. Was your mother, did she say whether she was back from the store or did she just see the smoke and came over from the store?
I don't know which thing happened. I just know
Okay.
that it seemed that it wasn't very long, that it didn't take long for the fire to start, but it wasn't very long before we heard her voice calling us.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just as a mother, I wonder about those things. If I'm across the street and I'm seeing smoke, am I
I
running over?
know.
Or when I come in the house, and I see smoke, that had to be like terrifying for your mom. But after you got to the hospital, what happened then? Do you remember?
I got to the hospital, and what I remember is being in the bed, being in traction.
Mm.
I had burns on the left side of my face, on my left elbow, and on the backs of my legs.
Wow.
And I remember being all bandaged up and that my legs were up in the air in traction.
Do you recall?
That's big.
I'm sorry, Rose. When you were in the fire, do you recall being in pain at all?
No. And like for instance, like I never felt myself getting burned. So
Mm.
I don't know if it was blisters, heat, but I never remember having contact with flames. So I don't know.
Okay. But in the hospital is when you started to feel pain?
Oh, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely felt,
Yeah.
especially in dealing with burn therapy at that particular time. So,
Wow. So that seems like it would be traumatic for a little kid to go through that. Did you have any well, I don't know, did your mom stay with you the whole time that you were there?
yeah, some nights she would go home and then, come back the next day. But yeah, basically my mom was there every day.
Okay. Did you have any feelings of fear or anything while you were in the hospital?
Um, I think that I did, just, it being a strange place and not knowing what to expect. And I think also the other thing that I was dealing with is that I kept asking for my brother Harry Jr.
Mhm.
and they would say something that they wouldn't answer the question, because I guess nobody wanted to tell me. And so finally one day, my mom decided to tell me. And so what she said was that Harry Jr. has gone to heaven to be with God.
Mm.
And that is when I remember thinking about praying. Because as children, mom prayed with us every night. You kneel by your bed and you say your prayers every night, right? But those were, led prayers. And so then you say what you usually say: God bless mommy, God bless daddy, God bless blah, 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 blah.
Mm.
Um, and so at that time, she said that Harry Jr. was in heaven with God. And I said, where is heaven? And she said, it's up, it's up in the sky. So I went to the window and I looked out and I saw a full moon.
Mm.
So that seemed to me like a place. So I thought that Harry Jr. was on the moon. I thought
Okay.
that's where heaven was.
Yeah.
So what I did is I stood at the window and I was crying and I was praying to God and I asked God to please bring Harry Jr. back. And I told him that he could drop him down from the moon and that I would catch him. I promised that I would catch him, just bring him back.
Wow.
I
So did
thought
you
that
ever go ahead, what did you say?
I thought that that was a great prayer,
Well,
but it didn't work out like I planned.
so how did you feel about that? I mean, what point did you say to yourself, Harry's not coming back? And how did you feel about that?
Well, I felt very sad about that. I thought that I could do something, do some kind of performance thing for God, and so that he would bring him back. Um, but I guess I don't know. Mom told me that he wasn't going to come back,
Oh, okay.
and so it was like, okay, it's like, well, I put in a good college try.
So then how did Harry die? How did he pass?
Oh, okay. So, Harry Jr. was declared dead on arrival when we got to the hospital.
Mhm.
And later in life, well, my mom knew this, but she never told us. But later in life, I found out that the issue was that we were Black people, and this was in 1963.
Okay.
And they would not give Harry Jr. mouth-to-mouth resuscitation because he was Black.
Okay.
So because they didn't give him mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, we believe he died from smoke inhalation. So
Gosh, that is so sad, Rose.
it is, and I can't imagine, with my parents knowing this all along, just the anger and the hatred that must have just really built up. So,
Yeah. But it's something that she didn't tell you all that. Maybe she didn't want you to feel that way, you know, because that's
yeah,
awful. That's hard to know that maybe someone could have lived, but because of racism, you know,
Mm-hmm.
they didn't. That could be pretty tough. That could be
Mm-hmm.
tough to handle. As far as faith in God, where was your family at this time? You know, your mom told you that he was in heaven with God, so obviously she believed in God. But, you know, did she teach you all about God, or did you all go to church at that time?
Well, we would go to church. My parents were bar owners, and so they really, the funny thing is that my parents, both of them believed in God, but my dad did not go to church.
Okay.
Church for him was listening to Mahalia Jackson albums. And my mom would go to church occasionally, but of course, you know, she would be very tired from working in the bar. I think the bar closed between 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning. And
Mm,
so she would be very tired. So occasionally she would take us to church, or she would send us to church
okay.
by a neighbor or a friend that was going to church. So it was that kind of situation. It wasn't a real strong, you know, we didn't have family devotions. We did have family meetings,
Mm,
but we didn't have family devotions
okay.
or anything like that.
So, having gone through this fire at such a young age and losing your brother, how did that affect you as far as emotionally or, you know, spiritually? Well, I know physically how, well, I don't know to the extent that affected you physically. If you want to share more about that too, you can, but just how it impacted you in those three areas.
Well, I think that emotionally, something that I was going through, and I didn't go through this until later when I got older, and
Mm-hmm.
that was just feeling rejected as far as um, you know, my parents probably wanted Harry Jr. to live and me to go to heaven. And so I was dealing with that particular issue because every year when my birthday came, my mom would get drunk, like drunk, and my dad would just not be around. They would really get into big arguments around the time of my birthday. And so I was thinking, wow, they probably wish that I died and Harry Jr. lived.
But it
And
was probably that situation. They reacted like that because his birthday was the next day.
right.
Right? It wasn't because it was just your birthday, but it was because his birthday was the next day. Okay. All right, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Hmm. And so we had that going on, but I really, as a kid, I really wasn't aware of that feeling.
Mm,
I just later came to realize that I was feeling like I wasn't chosen. And as a matter of fact, when I started preaching, that was my very first message. And it was called, What Would You Do If You Knew You Were Chosen? And it was about, you know, me going through the fire. Um, let's see, physically, you know, kids would tease me, or people on the street would see me and they would stare. Usually the reaction was amazement, like, oh, look at those burns. And they would think of pain, you know, and so they would assume that I was in pain. And it's like, no, I'm not in pain. But then, like the mean kids, you know, they would just call me names.
mm,
And so my mom and dad decided that, well, let's put her in private school because they thought it would lessen that happening. And it did lessen that. I mean, kids at school didn't tease me or anything like that.
okay, well that's good because kids
Mhm.
can be cruel.
Yeah.
They can. So did that affect your self-perception at all or your self-image, how you saw yourself, whether you know you were beautiful or in any way like that?
Okay, I think that I just had a good set of parents. They never treated me as if I were different
Mm.
or that I looked different. They never dealt with that particular thing. And that was never an issue, put it
Okay.
that way. And so I guess as a result, I didn't think, oh, you're ugly because you got burns. I never thought that. It was like having burns was just what I had.
Mm.
It wasn't, it didn't really describe me except that, people would say, oh, you're Kate and Harry's daughter. You're the one that got burnt up in the fire. And it's like, okay, no, I didn't get burnt up because I'm here. Uh, but people would say that, oh, you're the one that got burnt up in the fire.
And that
So
didn't
that
bother you?
distinguished.
That didn't bother you? That didn't impact you any kind of way?
Well,
Well,
I mean, it
it
made
made
me, let's see. I had a tendency to be sarcastic.
mm,
And I would be sarcastic when people said things like that. So it was more that kind of thing. But it didn't make me feel different about me. It made me feel like, wow, they're really stupid to say something like that. That's not logical, that kind of thing. And both my parents were very straightforward people, and they were very direct. So I suppose I inherited that.
well,
I
that's
just had a tendency to be more diplomatic. So I would think first before I said something, but I still might be straightforward about some things.
well, I think it's amazing that you didn't internalize what other people said to you or, called you names that your parents kind of helped you along in that, giving you a healthy self-image, even though, you had scars or whatever, because since I've known you, you've never tried to cover them up, which I just think is so awesome. And so even growing up, you were the same way.
Yeah, basically, I was the same way. I wanted to say something about how my parents raised me, and I wanted to give this example
Okay.
because I thought it was a good example of my mom.
Right.
When I was in the hospital, and this was like the first few days, like the first couple of days I was in the hospital. Imagine, my mom has lost a son, and then she has a daughter that's in critical condition. And so she came to the hospital, and the doctor and nurses told her, if Rose doesn't eat soon, she's going to die. You're going to lose her.
Mm.
And so my mom's like, okay, let's get some food. Let's get going. So they brought her a tray of food. And so I guess I didn't feel like eating. And so she kept trying to feed me. And so I'm in traction. So my left arm is up. My head is all bandaged. My legs are up. There's nothing I can do. And
Mm.
so she's bringing the food up to my mouth, and I keep turning my head. And so I guess I got tired of that. And I remember taking my bandaged arm and shoving the tray off of the stand. And all of the food went right onto her. And I remember the dress she had on. She was pregnant with my sister Sand. So she's got this pregnant belly with all this food on it. The dress was white with navy blue stripes.
Uh-huh.
And I said, no. Okay. And so she looked at me. She went in her purse. She got out her rat tail brush. She turned me over in the traction.
Really?
My butt had no burns. My butt was free and clear. She whooped my butt.
Oh my gosh.
I was screaming and hollering. The nurses were rushing in. She finished whooping me. She turned to the nurse. She said, bring me another tray of food. And she said it just like that. And I'm there. They bring the tray of food. She starts feeding me. I eat. And I haven't stopped since.
Wow. 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 She was like, I'm not losing another child, huh?
Yeah, and so I credit that situation and what my mom did for giving me a strong will to live. So I have a strong will to live. And so
Oh, that
there,
is something else. Because in this day and time, your mom would have been in jail. They would have reported her to
yeah,
CPS.
definitely.
But for you to even acknowledge that that had such a positive impact on you, I don't know. In this day and time we live, parenting is so different, and how people think people should parent is so different. And it's funny, if I could just share this little story. I know it's not about me, but this just reminded me of like my mother. I don't know, maybe when I was like 10 or 11, I somehow out the blue, Rose, I developed a stutter. I don't know
Oh,
why I started stuttering. Now my stepfather, he stutters, but my mother wasn't with him at that time. My dad was still alive. And so I just developed this stutter. And I remember my mother at some point, she was like, Lydia, I don't know where this stuttering came from, but you better stop it right now. She's like, and my mother, she had the kind of look that would make you get right. And so
mhm.
her look with this tone of voice, she was like, I don't know why you're doing this, but you have got to stop that right now. And I knew she wasn't playing, and I haven't stuttered since. But it's amazing, because my mother didn't play and I didn't want to get whipped. I didn't want to get a beating. So I'm like, yeah, I know my mother. I know this tone. I just need to stop. But, nowadays, parents, they feel like they need to encourage their children and whatever, they're doing or feel like they need to do to be supportive, and whatever. But sometimes you need to nip that stuff in the bud, you know? You just got to be stern and just nip it in the bud, and it could just change the child's whole life. You know what I'm saying? And things are just so different these days. Parents just tend to flow with whatever the children want to do or however they are, and it's like, no, that's not what parents are for. We're here to
Mhm.
guide. And so I think it's commendable that your mom knew what to do in that situation, and it got the result that she needed, and you feel like you are better for that. Because
Yes, I
that was something right there. Through this situation, and how did you see God? Did this situation make you see God anyway, or out of it, what did you learn about Him, or what was your relationship with Him after? Because I know you have a relationship now, but how did that develop? Did you have to overcome a certain way you saw God, or did you see Him as the loving Father that He is right from the start?
I did not see God as a loving father right from the start. I don't think I understood that concept in relating to God.
Hmm.
I just knew that God, if you need something, God is the person that you go to, and ultimately he can do the big stuff.
Okay.
Um, I guess, and just that I saw my dad like that too, that, dad can handle the big stuff, he can handle the important stuff. And so I began to look at God in that way. And then in being in Catholic school, I don't know, something happened, and I just really fell in love with God there. And I just wanted to be close to God. And we went to Mass almost every day, and you could be with God. And they
Mhm.
told me that, the nuns and the priests are holy, and they're close. That means that they're close to God. And I said, oh, I want to be close to God. And so as a result, I was just really into it. But my relationship with God was, I guess, through the Catholic Church and through the ceremonies and through the rituals. And I just wanted to please God, and I just wanted to be like him.
So, is there any part in your journey, as your understanding became more mature, because, as a child, you don't understand a lot of things. And as you developed and matured, did you ever look back on that situation and feel some kind of negativity toward God? Like, God, why did you let that happen? Or anything like that? Did you have those kind of conversations with Him?
I didn't have conversations with him about why did you let that happen. I was one of those compliant people. It's like, okay, whatever happens, that's what, that's what you get. That's just how it is. That's the rules. So I was very compliant. But later on in life, as I became an adult, I went through some inner healing sessions.
Mm.
And that's when I realized that even in any negative situation that I went through, that God was there and that he was talking to me and that he was saying some things. And
Mm.
so I think that that's what made me, I don't know, have a good self-image, I guess. Because there was a situation when I was 14. Someone had advised my parents that they should take me to a plastic surgeon so that I could get the scar on my face removed. And the scar was a heavy scar, like the scar that's on my elbow.
Mhm.
Uh, it was heavy and it was on my face in this area. And so when you go to the plastic surgeon, then he interviews you because he wants to know if the person is psychologically ready for a change like this. Well, I had never thought about the possibility of plastic surgery. I just never thought about it, period, at all.
Mhm.
And so the plastic surgeon was asking me several questions, and he was saying to me, "Do you think you're pretty?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Do you think people like you, or do you think people don't like you?" And I said, "People like me." And he said, "Even with your burns, you think people like you?" And I was like, "Yes, they like me." And he said, "So if you have plastic surgery and this burn is removed, what do you think will happen?" And I said, "I just think the burn will be gone."
Mhm.
He's like, "Oh, okay." So he went back and told my parents, "You have a very healthy daughter. We can do plastic surgery." So, and I just think that that's a result of, parents not, saying, "Oh, you got this problem and this and that." They were always telling me, "Oh, no, you can do whatever it is you want to do. You can do that and you can become this and you can do that." They didn't talk limitations to me.
That's
And
good.
they really didn't have a limitation expectation either.
Mm.
It was like, okay, you're the oldest, you're supposed to take care of your brother and sister, and you make sure that you do that. And if they get into trouble while you're watching them, then you're going to get your butt beat. And I didn't want any butt whoopings.
That, I get that.
And so I told my brother and sister, whatever you do, watch out, because if I see you doing it, I'm gonna tell, I'm gonna tell, I'm gonna tell. Because I wasn't taking whoopings for anybody.
Mm.
So, yeah, I really appreciate that upbringing and that they didn't treat me as different.
Well, that's a good message for parents out there who have children who've been through something like that, that can be disabling or even cause a child to think that they're a certain kind of way or can't. You just gotta tell them the truth, which is, regardless of what's going on with you, you can do something. You can achieve your goals. You can be successful. You are beautiful. And so I'm thankful that you have parents like that, and that God gave you that because, I just want to say again, I've known Rose for so long and she just carries herself with such confidence. Rose is quite the fashionista.
Uh-oh, uh-oh, I got a whole bunch of shoes in the
Yeah,
closet.
yeah. So
And
lots of
toys.
shoes, lots of jewelry. If she doesn't buy jewelry, she'll make her own jewelry and her own clothes. She's so anointed, so gifted with crafts and with her hands, doing things and creating things with her hands. And she just carries herself so regally and elegantly. And I love that about you, Rose. I do, because you have not let what happened to you define who you are, or limit what you can or cannot do. And, I'm thankful to God for that. And I believe that can be a blessing and help to other people. And I believe God has helped you through the process of,
Yeah.
being who you are. So when you said went through life feeling rejected, feeling like maybe your parents had preferred that you had passed and Harry had lived, what settled that for you? When did that become, when did God heal you of that? What did he do? What did he say to you?
Well, I went through some inner healing, and in the inner healing process, during that process, what the person does is ask you, okay, do you see Jesus in this situation? And I did, I was imagining being in the fire, coming out of the fire, and I did see Jesus there. And then in that process, the Lord said to me, you are chosen. He said, I chose Harry Jr. to be with me, and I chose you to stay here in the earth.
Mm.
And that just, woo, just broke open so many possibilities. Like, I am chosen, and I am here for a reason. I mean, I've always been thinking that I'm here for a reason, and people would say to you, "You're a miracle," and so I would think, "Yeah, I'm a miracle. I'm here for a reason." Um, didn't necessarily know what the reason was, but you know, still here for a reason.
Right.
So that's when it happened, during that inner healing process, where then I just lumped that idea of being rejected. I'm not rejected. I'm accepted into the beloved,
Mm-hmm.
because I had even been thinking about that, the parable about the vineyard workers,
Mm-hmm.
how vineyard workers came and they agreed to a certain salary, but the people who came last,
Yeah.
they got the same.
Right.
And so I was like, yeah, see, oh man, just ain't right. Because I couldn't help that this, and this happened. And then it's like, oh, but I get the same, like, it's okay,
Yeah.
I still get the same reward. Or I'm not rejected because I have blemishes, because there's a scripture about, if you have blemishes, then you can't be accepted in.
Yeah.
And I was tripping out on that, and it's like, no, I don't think it's referring to me.
Wow, Rose, that's amazing. It's interesting how just one word from the Lord can
Mhm.
just bring healing to your soul. Just one word for him. So it's one thing to be, feeling accepted by your parents, but when the Lord tells you, I chose you, I
Mm,
chose you, I chose Harry to be with me, and I chose you to stay. I mean, that's awesome because you know then that you are on the mind of God, that he has a plan for you, and you're special to him. It's not that you're more special than anyone else, but when God says something specifically for you, that he's chosen you for something, you'd be like, wow, me. And the reality is he's chosen all of us for something,
yeah.
for a special purpose here. And it's my prayer and my work in life to help people realize that they are chosen for a reason, that God put them here for a reason. And I just think that's awesome. And obviously, because I remember you telling me too, Rose, that you were born prematurely,
Oh, yes.
right?
Months premature,
How many months?
6 months.
You were born
So
at 6 months?
I
Okay.
was 6 month preemie, and so I should have been born in March, but I was born in January.
Wow. And so how much did you weigh when you were born?
Oh, when I was born, I weighed 2 pounds and I think 6 ounces. And my dad said that I fit in the palm of his hand.
Yeah. So even
Amazing.
that's a miracle. That's a miracle in itself, especially in the early 60s, you know,
Yes.
when medical, technology hadn't advanced to the point where it is now, and, we can help premature babies live. So That is just awesome. So obviously, the enemy wanted to take you out.
Yeah.
Plan and the purpose that God has for you, but God said, nope, not happening. And I know that your life has impacted so many people that you've ministered to, that I've seen you minister to. Your life has impacted my life so many times. Rose has encouraged me when I felt like what it Inspector Gadget said, when I felt like a corn on the toe of life. Rose would just encourage me. I wouldn't even have to tell her anything. She would just come up and just encourage me. And so you've been a blessing to so many people. And I'm so thankful for what God has done in you, Rose, and what God has done through you. And, it's just great that you're not bitter about it. Um, and probably because of that word, when your loved one passes, that's difficult, but for God to say, I chose him to be with me, it's okay, because even when we're saved, we know that we're going to see our loved ones again.
Mm.
That brings such a hope and a comfort in a time of loss like that. So I'm thankful for the parents that God gave you. And
Yeah.
I'm thankful he's had his hand on you from conception. He had a plan for you before you were ever formed in your mother's womb. And here you are today, still blessing people, still doing good and doing the works of God. And do you have any words you'd like to share with people who, maybe have gone through tragedy that, you've learned, surviving a tragedy like that may help them, encourage them during this time?
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing that I would like to say is that the things that have happened to you should not be the indicator of your future. And
Mhm.
that, you may have suffered and have scars from your past and the consequences of your behavior, but that does not determine what you will do and what you will be in the future and what you can offer. My scars are not my identity. I am not Rose Smith, the girl who got burnt up in the fire.
Well,
I'm Rose Smith, the one who's loved by God.
mm,
I'm Rose Smith, the one who has the purpose of bringing light into dark places.
that's right.
I'm Rose Smith. Oh gosh, just loved, loved, loved.
Mhm.
I'm Rose Smith, who also loves and has the blessing of Abraham. And the blessing that Abraham has is that he had blessings and he was a blessing. And
Yeah.
so it's like twofold, twofold. I get them and I give them. I get them and I give them. And
Wow.
so please don't let what happened to you determine who you are or what you will do and what you will do for the Lord. I'm living proof that God is good.
Yes, you are, Rose. And thank you so much for sharing your story with everyone who's listening. It definitely needs to be heard. Again, and I say this all the time, people think that because we're Christians, we don't suffer, that somehow we're not supposed to suffer, or I don't know. Or if we're suffering, it must mean that we've done something wrong, or that we're, not really Christians, or we've made God angry. When the truth of the matter is, we all go through things, but it's
Mhm.
not what you go through, it's how you go through it and how you react. And, you are such a blessing in how you've handled, that situation, and your trust and your faith in God in every step of the way of your journey is truly encouraging. So thank you so much, Rose, and we pray God's richest blessings on you, his favor, and that you will continue bringing light to dark places.
All right.
All right. Thank you so much. Ecclesiastes 4:7 says the end of a thing is better than the beginning, and the rest of the verse talks about patience. You may be facing a hard situation, but know this: if it is not better, it is not the end. Just be patient. Romans 8:28 says, "And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose." I know that God has a calling on your life, and if you love him, he will work all things together for your good. If you know someone who is struggling as a result of tragedy, please share this recording with them. I believe it will instill hope and faith in God for victory over their circumstances. Always remember that God loves you and you are his heart. Only he can turn the tests in your life into testimonies. Just open your heart to him and allow Jesus to become Lord of your life. He will make you an overcomer too. Thank you for listening to Can't Keep Silent in this installment in our series. Please leave a comment or send us an email at lydia@can'tkeepsilent.com or visit us on Facebook at Can't Keep Silent.